Some of those whom he quotes or refers to in his tafsir are Abu Muslim al-Isfahani, who's a Mu'tazili scholar, al-Zamakhsharee. Al-Zamakhsharee is sort of the ghost that haunts Tafsir al-Kabir. He seems to be always refuting him, even if he may not always mention him by name. He also refers to al-Wahidi, who's a Mufassir, and al-Nahas. Here's an example of some of his comments at the beginning of Surah Al-An'am. Alhamdulillah alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal-ard wa ja'ala adh-dhulumati wan-nur. Verse number 1. Ibn Abbas said it's Meccan. The surah was Meccan, and it was revealed all at once. And when it was revealed, it filled the whole valley. And it was accompanied by 70,000 angels. Allah's Messenger ﷺ called the scribes, and they wrote it all that same night, except for 6 verses, which are Medina, and he mentions this. He then quotes a verse, a hadith, about the merits of Surah Al-An'am. This had become a sort of a convention in tafsir by his time, and most of these hadiths, it's well known, are not authentic. And then he comments on, the hadith supposedly says that no surah of the Qur'an was revealed to me all at once except for Surah Al-An'am, which, that even the content of that is questionable. He says, al-Raazee says, the scholars of Usul al-Din, state that this surah has 2 unique characteristics: that it was revealed all at once and that it was accompanied by 70,000 angels. The reason for that is that it contains evidences for tawheed, justice, prophethood, and resurrection, and it refutes the beliefs of deniers and atheists. This indicates that the knowledge of the principles of Islam is of the utmost importance and elevation. Also, it may be a benefit for Allah to reveal rules related to behavior according to people's need for them in installments and in response to events. On the other hand, that which provides evidence about issues of belief, Allah revealed it all at once, which indicates that learning about the principles of belief is obligatory right away and cannot be delayed. Then with regard to the statement, Alhamdulillah, the exhaustive discussion surrounding the term hamd has already been dealt with in the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha, but there's no harm in repeating some points of benefit. In this, there are certain issues. Issue number 1, the difference between madh, hamd, and shukr. Madh and hamd both can be translated as praise, and shukr is really gratitude. Know that madh is more comprehensive than hamd, and that hamd is more comprehensive than shukr. Madh is used for that with intellect and for that without intellect. It's fine to use madh for a man with fine qualities, and also fine to use it for a pearl with fine qualities. As for hamd, it is only used for one who acts on the basis of choice, al-fa'il al-mukhtar. Such an entity is praised for what comes from him of kindness and blessings. As for hamd being more comprehensive than shukr, it is because hamd is praise of someone for the good he does, whether that benevolence reaches you or not, while shukr is praise for someone when their benevolence affects you personally. If that has become clear to you, then you know he did not say al-madhu lillah, because, as we've explained, madh can be directed at an actor who chooses his acts, and it can also be used for others as well. As for hamd, it is only for an actor who chooses his acts. Therefore, his statement, alhamdulillah, is explicit in its indication that the effective cause of the existence of this world is an actor who chooses his acts and who created it by power and will. He is not a cause in the way that philosophers conceive of him, because they talk about existence emanating from him the way fire gives off heat. Without doubt, this insight is tremendous for its implications in the religion. And he did not say a shukru lillah, because as we have explained, shukr is praise for someone when their benevolence affects you personally. this would give the impression that when the slave expresses praise for benevolence that affects him personally, his primary concern is his own personal benefit, and this is a lowly station. However, when he says Alhamdulillah, this indicates that the slave praised him because he is deserving of praise, absolutely, not because of the benevolence that reached the slave in particular, which makes for more perfect ikhlas, sincerity, and more complete immersion of the heart in witnessing the light of al-Haq, the truth, and his severance from everything except al-Haq. It makes his severance from everything except al-Haq stronger and firmer. Issue number 2. Having hamd prefaced with al indicates the categories exclusively for Allah, which means that nothing else deserves praise except Allah. One may say that it's obligatory to express gratitude when someone does you a favor, as mentioned in the hadith. Man lam yashkurin nas lam yashkurillah. Whoever does not thank people has not actually expressed gratitude to Allah. The hadith was reported by some of the Ashab al-Sunnah. We would say the one who is praised and thanked is in reality only Allah, or the one who is to be praised and thanked. This is clarified from a number of aspects. First, for a person to do good to anyone requires some motivation entering his heart, and that does not happen due to the will of the person himself. If it did, it would require another motivation to arise in the heart of the person, which would end up requiring a chain of endless regression. In fact, the motivation comes into existence only due to Allah, subhanahu. When that motivation arises, it requires an act, and if it should fade or pass away, it means there will be no act. Therefore, the benevolent one is in reality none but Allah, and therefore the one who deserves all praise is in reality Allah. Glory be to Him. Second, any creature who does good to another does that act of kindness, either to secure a benefit or repel some harm. And the actor does it for his own benefit. As for securing benefit, he intends by doing that act to achieve a feeling of happiness in his heart, or some reciprocal act of worldly benefit, small or great, or reward in the hereafter. As for repelling harm, when a person sees an animal in some tribulation, his heart softens toward it. That feeling is experienced as a kind of pain in the heart. And you see that in the English word sympathy, which pathy comes from a word for pain in Greek, I believe. And so it means same pain. You're feeling the same pain vicariously. And in Persian, you have the same exact structure, hamdard. Anyway, that's from me. If he tries to relieve that creature's suffering, the pain passes from his own heart, and he returns to equilibrium. That proves that everyone except al-Haq does good for some motive of personal benefit. As for al-Haq, he treats with benevolence and derives no benefit from doing so. Therefore, the truly benevolent is none but Allah, and therefore the one who deserves all forms of praise is only Allah. So Allah said, Alhamdulillah. Third, every form of benevolence which one creature extends to another, the beneficiary can only benefit from it by means of Allah's benevolence. Don't you see that Allah creates every type of blessing? If not for Him, a person would not be able to give wheat or fruit or anything else to someone else. Also, if Allah had not given people the 5 senses, they would be unable to benefit from the created blessings. If Allah had not given the beneficiary good health and cheerful disposition, he would not enjoy the benefits of the blessing. Therefore, it is established that any blessing that reaches a person by way of someone other than Allah, the benefit of that blessing can only be realized by virtue of Allah's blessings, which shows that there is no doer of benevolence in reality except Allah, and that none is deserving of praise except Allah. And he goes on with some more aspects. And then he says, issue number 3, he says, Alhamdulillah, Allah said, Alhamdulillah, and He did not say, Ahmadullah, I praise Allah. for a number of reasons. First, praise is an attribute of the heart, and perhaps a person may say this statement while his heart is otherwise engaged and diverted from consciously focusing on the meaning of praise and glorification. If he were to say, at such a time, I praise Allah, he would be lying and would deserve censure and punishment, for he would be making a claim for something that is not actually existing. However, when he says Alhamdulillah, it means that the essence and reality of praise are acknowledged to be for Allah. This statement is true, whether the person saying it is consciously turning his heart to the contemplation of that meaning or not. Therefore, the statement is a form of sublime worship, and the difference between the two statements is manifest. Second, it has been narrated that Allah inspired Prophet Dawood ﷺ with the command to express gratitude. Dawood said, My Lord, how can I ever be sufficiently grateful to you when my gratitude cannot be without your enabling me to be grateful? Tawfiq. And that tawfiq is an additional blessing that requires gratitude from me as well. And that is an ocean without shores. And I have no ability to do an act without limits or end. Allah revealed to him, your recognition that you can never properly express gratitude to me is your gratitude. Al-Raazee says, if you know that, then if the slave were to say, I praise Allah, it is a claim that calls for that very question. In other words, the praise is tawfiq from Allah that requires another praise. However, if he says, Alhamdulillah, he is not making a claim that he has delivered the required praise and glorification. It's only a statement that Allah is deserving of praise and glorification, whether the slave is able to fulfill the requirements of that praise or not. The difference between the two statements thus becomes apparent from this angle. Third, if he were to say, Ahmadullah, I praise Allah, it indicates that he is praising Allah, but it makes no allusions to the praise of others for Allah. However, if he says, Alhamdulillah, it includes his praise and the praise of others from the beginning of creation until the mukallafeen settle in paradise and hell. As Allah said, وَآخِرُ دَعْوَاهُمْ أَنِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ, and the conclusion of their prayer will be, praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. This is referring to the inhabitants of paradise. Verse 10 of Surah Yunus. Okay, we're just skimming the barest surface of that massive tafsir.